Imagine this. You're at a dinner party. The conversation hums with polite laughter and carefully curated small talk, stock market murmurs, vacation plans, Netflix recommendations. Everyone is dressed the same, smiles the same, drinks from identical crystal glasses. And yet, something in you aches. It's not the wine or the crowd, it's the eerie suspicion that you're playing a role in a script you never agreed to. You glance around the room and realize no one's really here. Not fully. They're performing, wrapped in layers of social camouflage. The talk is fluent, but nothing of substance is ever said. The laughs come easily, but no joy follows. And in that instant, the silence underneath the chatter screams louder than the words. Now ask yourself, when did you agree to become this? This shape, this version of yourself, polished, predictable, polite. Who taught you that being normal was the ideal, the goal, the prize worth selling your soul for? You were never handed a contract. There was no initiation ceremony into the cult of conformity. And yet, somewhere between childhood and now, the wildfire in your belly was replaced with the dull hum of duty. Your strange edges were sanded down, not because they were dangerous, but because they made other people uncomfortable. There is a crime being committed, not with blood, not with guns, but with smiles, with praise, with normalization. And the body count is invisible, dreams unpursued, talents buried alive, identities suffocated in favor of acceptability. No alarms went off. Because normal doesn't kill quickly. It erodes. Look around. How many people do you know who are truly alive? Not successful. Not stable. Not liked. Alive, there's a difference. You see, the greatest danger you face isn't failure. It's being good enough at becoming someone you were never meant to be. To become so convincing in the performance of normalcy that even you forget it's an act. So here's the paradox. You've been taught that freedom means fitting in. That safety is found in sameness. That if you align your life with the world's expectations, you'll be rewarded with peace. But what if that's the trap? What if conformity is not the path to belonging, but the death of your unique existence? What if the real you, the unfiltered, feral, inconvenient, too much for this world you, was never meant to be normal? What if you were never designed to walk quietly among sheep, but to howl with the wolves? This isn't romantic rebellion. This is existential resuscitation. Because the cost of suppressing your difference isn't just internal discomfort, it's existential decay. It starts small. You suppress your weirdness to avoid being teased. You ditch your wild ideas because they don't sound realistic. You hide your passion because it's too intense. And slowly, year after year, mask after mask, you become a diluted version of yourself, someone built to be accepted, not remembered. But here's the unbearable truth, the system doesn't want you to wake up. Because a fully awakened individual is unpredictable, uncontrollable. Someone who doesn't chase shallow metrics of success. Someone who values meaning over image. Someone who can't be marketed to, can't be placated with likes, promotions, or gold stars. So you were taught to seek comfort over truth. Obedience over originality. Peace over purpose. But at night, when the world quiets down and there's no one to impress, that old voice whispers again. The one that says, asterisk, this isn't it. This isn't who you are, asterisk. And maybe you silence it with distractions, with scrolling, with numbing routines. But it never really goes away, does it? That voice is sacred. It's not your enemy. It's your last connection to the self you buried under layers of what you thought was necessary to survive. So now, the real question. What if your discomfort isn't a problem, but a compass? What if the parts of you that don't fit are not flaws to fix, but flares in the dark, signals that your soul is still trying to breathe through the straitjacket of normality? You were not born to be digestible, palatable, acceptable. You were born to be real. To be you. Unapologetically. Uncompromisingly. Uncomfortably. But to reclaim that self, to remember who you are beyond the roles you play, you have to be willing to risk the very thing you've been taught to protect, your normalcy. Are you ready to dig beneath the life you've been told to live? And ask the forbidden question. What if the real you was never meant to be normal? You weren't born afraid of being different. As a child, you danced when there was no music. You asked strange, beautiful questions. You built entire worlds out of silence and scribbles. You were unapologetically you, loud, messy, curious. And then, slowly, someone started erasing you. Don't say that. People will laugh. That's not how you're supposed to act. Be normal. It came from everywhere: teachers, parents, classmates, culture itself. Not out of malice, but fear. Fear passed down from generation to generation, the kind that doesn't raise its voice but speaks with a quiet authority that breaks spirits without bruising skin. But why does this happen? Why is normalcy so ruthlessly enforced, and what lies beneath our need to fit into the mold? To understand this, you have to dive into the murky waters of the human psyche and confront the primal fear hiding beneath the surface, the terror of being abandoned. The evolutionary curse. From an evolutionary perspective, belonging to the group meant survival. A lone human on the savannah didn't last long. Rejection wasn't just social discomfort, it was death. So over time, our nervous systems became wired for conformity. The approval of the tribe became as necessary as food or water. You feel a jolt of anxiety when you're excluded, not because you're weak, but because your ancient brain thinks exclusion equals extinction. Now, layer modern society on top of that. You're no longer being chased by lions, but your nervous system can't tell the difference between physical danger and emotional rejection. When you voice an unpopular opinion and feel those eyes on you, that heat in your chest, the tightening in your gut, that's your primitive survival circuitry kicking in. The system exploits that. School systems reward obedience, not originality. Corporations favor predictability over passion. Algorithms reward content that conforms to mass appeal. Culture molds you to be palatable. And in this machinery, anyone too strange, too bold, too true becomes a threat. But there's more. There's a deeper layer, philosophical, existential, tragic. Nietzsche's abyss. Friedrich Nietzsche saw this long before us. He warned of the herd morality, the set of values designed not by the strong and the brave, but by the fearful and the average. He believed society conditions us to suppress our instincts and desires in favor of comfort and control. To Nietzsche, being normal was not virtuous, it was the death of the self. He wrote, the individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Owning yourself means stepping outside the circle. It means confronting not only judgment from others, but the chaos within. Most people don't want that. They want order, predictability, a life that's safe, even if it means living a lie. Jung's shadow. Carl Jung took it further. He argued that the parts of ourselves we deny or suppress, our wildness, rage, madness, sexuality, creativity, become our shadow. These disowned parts don't disappear. They fester. They twist into anxiety, depression, addiction, numbness. And the more you try to be normal, the more you bury your shadow. Jung believed that healing comes not through becoming more acceptable, but by integrating the unacceptable, by confronting the monstrous, strange, ecstatic parts of ourselves, and embracing them. The privilege of a lifetime, he said, is to become who you truly are. But that privilege requires pain. Because to become yourself, you have to unlearn everything that isn't. Sartre's gaze. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist, had another angle. He called it the gaze. It's the moment you realize someone is watching you, and you suddenly become a thing. You are no longer just existing, you are being perceived. And so, you start to shape yourself based on what you imagine others see. You edit your behavior. You suppress your strangeness. You become an actor in someone else's narrative. Sartre called this bad faith, when you live inauthentically to avoid the weight of true freedom. Because freedom is terrifying. It means responsibility. It means uncertainty. It means there's no one to blame but yourself. And so, we choose the cage. We choose to be liked over being free. The mass delusion. But what if the idea of normal itself is a hallucination? Aldous Huxley warned us in Brave New World, a society obsessed with comfort, entertainment, and control is not a utopia, but a silent prison. People were no longer forced into cages, they loved their servitude. Because if you can convince people that freedom is dangerous and conformity is happiness, you don't need chains. The chain is already in their minds. We are born as chaotic, passionate, soul-filled beings, and are taught to reduce ourselves into consumer identities: worker, voter, follower, audience. But those aren't identities. They're roles. Masks. And what lies beneath them is terrifying. Because underneath the mask is someone you barely remember. Someone who doesn't fit in. Someone who doesn't want to. That part of you never died. It's been whispering through your anxiety. Screaming through your boredom. Wailing through your "why does this not feel right?" It's not a defect. It's your soul, gasping for oxygen. Schopenhauer's suffering. Arthur Schopenhauer believed suffering was not the enemy, it was the raw material of life. That to desire, to feel, to ache is to be alive. Normalcy tries to eliminate suffering by eliminating depth. It numbs you. It says, don't dream too big, don't feel too deeply, don't want too much. But Schopenhauer would say, if you stop suffering, you stop being human. You become a ghost with a LinkedIn profile. Suffering isn't failure. It's proof you haven't flatlined. Frankl's fire. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, didn't see life's goal as comfort. He believed that life's deepest need is meaning. And that meaning doesn't come from conformity, but from struggle, from choosing how to face suffering. He said, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. And isn't that what modern normality is? A distraction. An endless feed. A simulation of life that keeps us just numb enough not to ask real questions. So what happens when you stop running from those questions? When you stop trying to be good and start trying to be real? That's where we're going next. Because the consequences of living a life that isn't yours don't just echo in your mind, they shape your reality in ways you can't see, yet. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day and decide to abandon yourself. It's subtle. It's slow. It begins with a hesitation. A silencing. A small betrayal of your own instinct. And then another. And another. Until one day, you look in the mirror and see a person who looks like you, talks like you, smiles like you, but isn't you. Not really. Because the real you, the one who once moved like a force of nature, is now a shadow behind your eyes, waiting for a life that never came. This is what happens when you strive to be normal. Not safe. Not happy. Not whole. Just socially acceptable. But here's the most insidious part. You don't realize the damage while it's happening. Because the consequences of self-betrayal are not dramatic. They are invisible. And they rot you from the inside out. The death by 1,000 cuts. Start with the mind. You begin to experience a strange fatigue, not of the body, but of the soul. A weightlessness that's not light, but hollow. You smile at all the right moments, laugh when you're supposed to, nod in meetings, reply to texts with a thumbs up emoji. But behind it all, there's a growing sense that you're drifting. That your life isn't yours. That's the psychological fracture, the widening gap between your authentic self and the persona you perform. And your nervous system feels it. Chronic stress. Anxiety. Depression. Not because you've done something wrong, but because you've lived too long in the wrong story. This is not a mental health issue. It's a spiritual hemorrhage. And society doesn't help, it gaslights you. You're just burned out. You need a vacation. Try a mindfulness app. No. You don't need a vacation. You need a resurrection. The architecture of the false self. Psychologist Donald Winnicott called it the false self, a construct we develop to navigate environments that can't hold our truth. As a child, if your wildness was punished, you became polite. If your emotions were mocked, you became numb. If your curiosity was dismissed, you became quiet. Over time, this false self becomes your interface with the world. You wear it like armor. But it's not protection, it's a prison. Because the more you invest in the mask, the more terrified you become of removing it. And here's the brutal irony. The more you perfect the performance, the more alone you feel. Because love, real love, can't reach a mask. It can only touch what's true. Neurology of numbness. Let's go deeper, into your brain. The human brain is plastic, it reshapes itself based on what you repeat. If you suppress your truth long enough, your brain starts pruning away the neural pathways that once carried your authenticity. This is called synaptic pruning, use it or lose it. If you never express your truth, the brain starts deleting the circuits responsible for it. You become efficient at living a lie. You literally rewire your brain to be numb, agreeable, and quiet. Not because it's who you are, but because it's who you've practiced being. And once the mask fuses with the face, it no longer feels like acting. It feels like you. But it's not. It's programming. The cultural machine. This programming isn't random. It's systematic. We live in a culture that monetizes your disconnection. A system that thrives when you doubt yourself, when you feel inadequate, when you strive to fix yourself. Because when you think something is missing, you can be sold something to fill the void. Beauty, success, influence, followers. Disguised as empowerment, they're just upgraded chains. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the government doesn't need violence to control people. It uses pleasure, distraction, entertainment. People love their servitude. Sound familiar? We binge content to avoid silence. We curate profiles to avoid honesty. We chase dopamine hits to avoid intimacy. It's not entertainment. It's anesthesia. Cognitive biases that keep you trapped. Psychology reveals more. There are forces inside your own mind working against your liberation. Confirmation bias makes you see only what aligns with your current identity. So if you believe you must be normal to be loved, you'll unconsciously filter out evidence that proves otherwise. Social proof tricks you into believing the majority must be right. If everyone around you is living the same inauthentic life, it becomes invisible. The water the fish can't see. The sunk cost fallacy convinces you that because you've already invested so much time being this version of yourself, you can't change now. So you double down. Keep playing the role. Keep betraying yourself. Until there's nothing left to betray. The generational echo. This isn't just your struggle. Your parents may have silenced their truths to survive. Your grandparents may have done the same. They handed you a legacy, not of wisdom, but of suppression. Not out of malice, but out of necessity. Because for them, authenticity may have meant danger, exile, or poverty. But you have the freedom they didn't. And if you don't break the pattern, you'll pass it on, too. You'll raise children who are experts in performance, but strangers to their own hearts. The final consequence, existential amnesia. But the most tragic consequence is this. You forget who you are. Not metaphorically. Literally. You forget the dreams that once lit you up. You forget the voice that once guided you. You forget what it felt like to be whole. And worst of all, you start to believe that the emptiness is just life. That everyone feels this way. That being numb is just part of growing up. It's not. It's a sign that something sacred is being suffocated. And unless you wake up, you will die as someone else. A copy. A role. A placeholder in someone else's blueprint. But what if you did wake up? What if you stopped seeking permission and started reclaiming your original self? What if rebellion wasn't chaos, but clarity? In the next section, we go there, into the fire. Because if you're brave enough to face the truth, you can become something the world has never seen. A person who remembers who they were before the world told them who to be. Let's be honest, this isn't just about identity. This is about survival. Not the survival of your body, but the survival of your soul. You've seen the cost of normalcy. You've felt it. The slow decay. The quiet scream beneath your smile. The unsettling sense that something essential is missing. And now, you're standing at the edge of something dangerous and holy. Because to escape the grip of normal, you must declare war. On your programming. On your masks. On the empire of expectations that has ruled your inner world for far too long. This is your rebellion. And it starts now. Step 1, radical remembering. Before you can become yourself, you have to remember yourself. Not the version you've polished. Not the one that fits in. The raw, feral, wild-eyed version. Think back. Who were you before the world told you who to be? What did you love, obsess over, create, destroy, before shame entered the picture? Close your eyes and go there. That version of you is still alive. Buried under years of should and ought to. But it's there waiting. This isn't nostalgia. It's resurrection. Because the self you abandoned didn't die. It's been exiled. And it's clawing at the door, desperate to come home. Step 2, rage against the lie. You've been conditioned to think anger is dangerous. That rage is uncivilized. But here's the truth. Anger is a compass. It points to where you've been violated. Where you've been silenced. Where your truth has been denied. Let yourself rage. Not at others. At the system. At the cage. At the way you were taught to mutilate yourself to be loved. Your anger isn't a flaw. It's your fire. Use it. Let it burn down the house of lies you've been living in. Step 3, the sacred no. You can't say yes to your truth until you say no to the world's demands. And that no will cost you. You will lose people. You will disappoint your family. You will be misunderstood. But the price of staying silent is higher. Because every time you say yes to something that violates your soul, you abandon yourself. So practice the sacred no. No to performative small talk. No to soul-killing jobs. No to relationships built on image instead of intimacy. No to pretending you're okay when you're not. Every no to the false brings you one step closer to the true. Step 4, find the others. Rebellion is lonely. But you are not alone. There are others out there in the dark. People who don't fit in. People who are done pretending. People whose eyes still burn with something ancient and untamed. You won't find them in the usual places. They're not at the center of the room. They're on the edges. Watching. Waiting. You will recognize them by the way they listen. By the questions they ask. By the stillness in their bones. When you find them, hold on. Speak the truth you've never spoken. Risk being seen. Because rebellion becomes revolution when it is shared. Step 5, rewild your life. Modern life is engineered to tame you. Schedules. Screens. Deadlines. Image. Identity. To break free, you have to rewild. Start with your body. Move in ways that don't make sense. Dance without choreography. Scream into the wind. Run until your lungs catch fire. Touch the earth. Swim in cold rivers. Sleep under stars. Let your body remember that it's part of something older than the algorithm. Then, rewild your mind. Read books that disturb you. Write without editing. Create without approval. Let madness in. Let wonder in. Trust that chaos is not your enemy, it's the birthplace of genius. The parts of you that don't make sense? That's your edge. That's your freedom. Step 6. Make meaning, not noise. The world doesn't need more content. It needs meaning. The system will try to co-opt your rebellion. It'll tell you to brand it, monetize it, hashtag it. To turn your truth into a product. Resist. You are not here to be relevant. You are here to be real. Don't just express yourself. Live yourself. Every act of authenticity is an act of defiance. Every time you speak your truth without apology, you crack the facade of the world a little more. Step 7. Embrace exile. Here's the hardest part. Once you walk this path, there's no going back. You'll no longer be able to unsee what you've seen. You'll feel the falseness in conversations. You'll smell the fear in conformity. And you will be lonely. Not always. Not forever. But deeply. Because you are leaving behind the comfort of the crowd. You are walking into the wild. But loneliness is not emptiness. It's the clearing before the new life grows. It's the silence where your real voice can finally speak. The historical pulse. This isn't just your rebellion. It's ancient. Every prophet, every poet, every revolutionary has walked this path. Jesus, Buddha, Socrates, Joan of Arc Galileo, Nina Simone, James Baldwin. All of them were told, "You're too much. You're too strange. You don't belong." And they answered, "Exactly. You are not here to maintain the system. You are here to disrupt it. To carry forward the great refusal, the sacred rage that says, 'I will not become what kills me.'" This is your turning point. You've seen the prison. Now you know how to walk out of it. But what lies beyond rebellion? Once the walls are down, once the masks are shattered, what's left? What is the truth that all of this points to? That's where we go next. You've burned the masks. You've walked through fire. You've said the forbidden no. You've remembered the parts of yourself they told you to forget. Now you're standing here, bare, breathless, awake. No longer normal. No longer trying to be. But in this nakedness, what remains? What's on the other side of rebellion? The answer is not loud. It won't come in fireworks or applause. It arrives like a whisper at the edge of silence. You were never meant to be normal. Because you were meant to be free. And freedom is not comfort. It's not safety. It's not popularity, or applause, or anything that can be measured in likes or salary bands. Freedom is existence without permission. It's being who you are when no one is watching. And still being that same person when everyone is. This is the ultimate truth. Your difference is not your burden. It's your doorway. The divine paradox. The world tells you, be like everyone else to be loved. Fit in to belong. Shrink to be accepted. But the truth? Real belonging only comes when you stop trying to belong. Love only finds you when you're not performing for it. And the more you embrace what makes you different, the more you tap into the one thing that unites all of us. The need to be seen. Truly, wholly, wildly seen. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to be undeniably yourself. And that, paradoxically, is what makes you most human. Most magnetic. Most alive. The universe never made a copy. Think about this. Out of 100 billion humans who have ever lived, not a single one has had your exact voice. Your precise fingerprint. Your particular mix of stories, scars, and soul. That is not an accident. That is a message. The universe doesn't make carbon copies. It makes originals. But you must choose to honor that originality. To guard it like fire in a world of cold repetition. Not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. The sacred responsibility of the self. The philosopher Martin Heidegger warned about the danger of Das Man, the anonymous they that governs modern life. They say this. They do that. They believe. But who is they? It's no one. And yet, we shape our entire lives around its imaginary approval. To break free is not just an act of rebellion. It is an act of being. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." This is both terrifying and liberating. There is no script. No authority figure to save you. No final blueprint for how to be yourself. You must invent yourself. Every single day. That is your responsibility. And also, your liberation. You are the question, not the answer. You keep waiting to find yourself. As if your identity is hiding behind some curtain, waiting to be discovered. But what if you're not meant to find yourself? What if you're meant to create yourself? Not as a product. Not as a brand. But as a living, evolving question. Let go of the craving for definition. Be undefined. Be in motion. Be becoming. You are not the answer. You are the invitation. To truth. To fire. To depth. To wildness. The re-enchantment of reality. Once you stop chasing normalcy, the world becomes strange again. Beautiful. Haunted. Alive. You notice the texture of wind. The ache in silence. The way a glance can split your chest open. You become a child again, but with the soul of a warrior. You laugh without reason. You cry without shame. You speak without filter. You are no longer a consumer of life. You are a participant. And that, more than anything, is what the world needs. Not another normal person, but someone who's truly here. The wound is the gift. Everything they told you to hide? That's where your genius lives. The too sensitive part of you feels what others cannot. The too intense part of you dreams what others dare not. The too weird part of you sees a world beyond the surface. Your wound is not your weakness. It is your portal. Leonard Cohen said it best. Asterisk, there is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. But what he didn't say is, the crack is also how your light gets out. The quiet knowing. There will come a day, sooner than you think, when you wake up, not with answers, but with a kind of peace. Not because life has become easier, but because you have stopped abandoning yourself. You will drink your coffee differently, walk differently, look people in the eyes differently, and someone will ask you, what changed? And you'll smile. Because how do you explain that you burned your old life to the ground? And what rose from the ashes? Was you? The final invitation. So here it is. Not a command. Not a prescription. An invitation. To stop trying to be normal. To stop chasing permission. To stop silencing the very thing that makes you alive. You don't need to be fixed. You need to be found. And that will never happen out there. It happens in here. In the stillness. In the fire. In the honest, terrifying, holy moment where you finally say, I am not what the world wanted me to be. I am who I was born to become. That's it. That's the truth. That's the revolution. You were never meant to be normal. You were meant to wake the world up. And it starts by waking yourself.